Congratulations, ISTP. I asked my YouTube community which sensory type they want to hear about next, the dynamic between INTJ, and you guys overwhelmingly got most of the votes. And I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not surprised. I'm an INTJ who has had ISTPs in my life for over 2 decades. One of my roommate that I've had for close to 8 or 9 years, he was an ISTP. I know so much about you guys, and I understand the draw between both of our types. So ISTPs, the purpose of this video is to go over why the INTJs love and admire the ISTPs. This is going to come from my own personal experience in addition to going over cognitive functions. If you're an ISTP that has an INTJ in your life, you know I'm going to talk out of my feelings. I know you guys don't enjoy it, but bear with me because honestly, this is how INTJs feel about ISTPs. Why we admire you guys and why this dynamic works so well. So sit back and relax, ISTPs, and enjoy this admiration video. And for you INTJs that are watching this video who doesn't have an ISTP in your life, I hope this changes your mind because honestly, they're one of the best people to be around. And before I begin this video, this is my 4th time recording this video. It's been over 2 hours and I haven't had a take that I really enjoyed. The first time I felt like I wasn't authentic enough. The second time my Adderall was hitting me so hard that I couldn't speak what my mind was thinking. The third time I felt like I was all over the place because I threw over the outline that I built. But because I'm a judger, it felt weird not having a plan. So ISTPs, I hope you guys enjoy this because this is the longest video ever made about any type out there. As with all my videos, I'm going to spend the next minute or two talking about my own personal experience with ISTPs. There are going to be 2 quick stories and I think all INTJs can relate to this. The first story is my ISTP who started dating an ISFJ. I remember having a conversation with the ISFJ and out of the blue she told me, "You know the ISTP isn't as dumb as he makes himself out to be, right?" I was like, huh? I've known this ISTP since we were 12 years old. I know how intelligent he is, but that was the moment I realized not everyone sees him that way. That was the moment I realized that the ISTP has a certain persona that he puts out that makes him seem dumb, I guess. It was a very interesting moment for me because I remember thinking to myself, in my head, I was like, duh. But then what came out of me was, yeah, I know. And that was the moment I realized that the way ISTPs engage with INTJs are different from the way ISTPs engage with other types. And it'll make sense when I talk about cognitive functions. The second story that I have is that the ISTPs in my life are always down to do things. I remember it was 3 days before my birthday and there was a concert in Canada when I was living in Washington State that I wanted to go to. 3 days before the concert, I messaged my ISTP friend. He said, yep. We didn't talk for 2 days, and then day of, that's when we made the plan, and we went to Canada for my birthday for this concert. That story easily explains the dynamic between ISTP and INTJs. When we are both healthy and when we both trust each other, we don't need the details because we trust that the other person is capable to figure out what we need to figure out the moment of. I know INTJs have this stereotype of being planners, which we are planners, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't think about the details, which I think is a good segue to talk about stereotypes. ISTPs have this stereotype of being very quiet people. And out of all the stereotypes that I've seen in the Myers-Briggs community, I think this one is the most truthful. I can't tell you guys how many situations I've been with ISTPs where I feel like I'm just yanking their teeth out in order to get them to talk or say something. I'm an INTJ. I am constantly thinking about something and I have TE in my second slot. I need some type of external validation to tell me that I'm not going crazy. But for ISTPs, you guys are so okay with being quiet that it just blows my mind. On another trip that I went on with my ISTP friend, we barely talked for 3.5 hours. I was communicating with him, but he just threw single word answers or just answered the question the way it was, which technically is correct because he's communicating with me. But I need more, man. I have NI. I need to understand why you think that way. And the second stereotype that I want to address is that ISTPs are seen as very naturally cool people, which I agree with to a certain extent. I have ISTPs in my life that are very healthy, and I have ISTPs in my life that are not very healthy. So I've seen every spectrum of them. And I can say from experience that the ISTPs that are very healthy, people like being around them. But the ISTPs that aren't very healthy, you have to pick and choose your battles around them because they're going to say what's on their mind and it's going to offend people. So as with every stereotype, it's somewhat true, but it doesn't really encompass the human aspect of an ISTP. Now let's go over this dynamic using cognitive functions. What people don't understand about the ISTP and INTJ dynamic is that our dominant function doesn't really matter that much. It's actually our secondary and tertiary function that matters the most. Yes, it ties back to our first function, and let me explain why. INTJs have Papa NI in their first stack, and ISTPs have NI in your third stack. That means that when an INTJ goes full NI nerd mode, the ISTP is able to follow. They're not the best at following, but They are able to connect the dots if we explain ourselves enough. And that's amazing because NI DOMs are constantly misunderstood. So we now have a friend who is able to follow and understand where we're coming from. Not only do they understand where we're coming from, but they also trust us using NI because they use it as well. And guys, I can't overstate that enough. NI users will always appreciate anyone who understands our NI and let us engage the world with NI. Now let's talk about it from the ISTP perspective. An ISTP leads with introverted thinking. And I say this in every one of my videos. Introverted thinking and introverted intuition loves communicating. Both types are trying to find the truth around things, and it's very intelligent conversation. Introverted intuition admires introverted thinking because NI looks at all these possibilities, but we don't really have the details to explain why. And then you have introverted thinking, who cares so much about the details that it's a very concrete way of approaching life. Introverted thinking is doing something that introverted intuition wish we could do, but we don't really have a grasp on. Enough said about that. The other cognitive function, which I think is a primary reason why ISTPs and INTJs get along so well, is the placement of extroverted sensing. ISTPs have extroverted sensing in their second slot, whereas INTJs have in our fourth slot. That means that the ISTP helps the INTJ develop extroverted sensing. But you guys help us develop in a very positive way. You guys aren't pushy. You guys are so patient with us when it comes down to extroverted sensing. You guys are also introverts, which means that you guys understand an INTJ's need for introversion. You understand that when we say no, it has nothing to do with you guys. It's just we don't want to do it because we're out of battery or for some other reason. Using ESFPs as comparison, ESFPs also lead with extroverted sensing, but they take it personal when INTJ says no because they don't understand our need to recuperate. They don't understand our need to be alone. But when you engage with ISTP, the ISTP is going to ask an INTJ if we want to do something. And if we say no, you're not going to take offense to that. And you're still going to invite us out the next time, especially if you think we're going to enjoy it. And speaking of enjoying it, INTJs learn a lot from the way ISTPs engage with the world. The way that an ISTP engages the world is very different from other types. You guys have extroverted sensing, so you guys like being hands-on. You guys like feeling the external world. However, you guys do it in a very introverted way. I don't know how to explain this, but it's very calming. It's like you guys are engaging with the world, but you guys aren't engaging with the world similar to how extroverts engage with the world. You guys are still calm, but you're having a good time. So as an INTJ who has extroverted sensing in my fourth slot, when we see that, we get taught that, hey, we can engage with the world and we don't have to be as extroverted as everyone wants us to be. It's such an invaluable thing to learn. An easy example is just going to concerts. Whenever you see these videos about people at concerts, you see a girl on someone's shoulder having the time of their life, or you see like all these bros just yelling at the camera. Not every experience has to be that way. And younger INTJs who haven't developed extroverted sensing much, that's what they think that world is. But there's another side of that world. There are people who are chill and just enjoy watching whatever they want to enjoy. First time I learned about that, it blew my mind. You ISTPs are so good at taking space. I don't think you guys understand what that means, so let me explain this to you guys. When you guys want to be seen, you guys are going to be seen. Whether it's how you guys dress, how you guys communicate, or just the way that you guys engage with the world. Most people don't know how to do that. There are certain people out there who will fade into the background because they don't know how to engage with the world. I think it's attributed to extrovert sensing, which you guys are already great at. And as an INTJ watching you guys, I learned how to take up space because of watching you guys, which is very different from extroverts again, because as an INTJ, we like taking up space, but we don't want to be center of attention, which you guys are naturally good at. So we learn that from you guys as well. Similar to the INTP relationship, the relationship between the ISTP and INTJ, it's very low maintenance. We don't need a lot from each other. We don't need to continuously be in communication with each other. We know that the love and loyalty is always going to be there. We'll hang out if we want to. If we don't, we won't. We're not going to take offense to this. The last benefit I want to talk about between our dynamic is that we're both very difficult to bullshit. I don't know how many times I can explain this, but I've been in so many situations where someone would say something ridiculous and my ISTP friend and I would make eye contact, not say a word, no emotions, but we know exactly what the other person is thinking. TI and NI, we just know our shit. But with all the positives between this dynamic, there are a few things that we need to work on. Primarily our feeling function. ISTPs have extroverted feeling in your fourth slot, whereas INTJs have introverted feeling in our third slot. INTJs cannot ignore our feelings. Our emotions is just as loud as any other function, we just don't know how to communicate it or deal with it. Whereas you guys just have it in your fourth function, so it's the last thing on your mind. It's very easy for ISTPs to offend people. That's where the INTJ comes in. So when ISTP says something that offends people using introverted thinking, INTJs can use extrovert thinking and put it in a way that makes sense that other people can understand where it's coming from. Because similar to how introverted intuition works for an INTJ, introverted thinking is internal, so it's very difficult to communicate, which I understand why ISTPs are known not to be very talkative, because typically you guys enjoy talking when it's about something that you're interested in, something that's part of your TI. And I've seen it way too many times with my INTP and ISTP having conversations. They can go on for days about a topic, but whenever they're around other people and they're talking about some other nonsense, they'd be like the most quiet people in the world, especially when it comes on to talking about emotions. And I have a gripe about this, by the way. The only time I remember being upset at one of my ISTP friends was when he refused to acknowledge my feelings on a certain topic. I'm not gonna go into too many details, but I remember this is my first and only time I raised my voice at him. It is not okay for you to ignore how I feel. You could do whatever you want and I'll support you, but never ignore my feeling when I'm involved. With that said though, I understand why he didn't talk about his feelings, because it's your last function and you don't like engaging with it much. If anything, you guys try to avoid it as much as you can, similar to how INTJs try to avoid extroverted sensing as much as we can. I understand that, but it's not fair for the people that you care about. You have to understand that people have feelings, and there are certain feelings that are illogical. They just won't make sense, especially if you're a TI user where there's logic in a lot of the things you guys do. As an ITJ who has FI in my third stack, there are certain things that I feel so much about that I know goes against all logic, that doesn't make sense, but I can't help feel it. And I can only imagine how dominant FI user, Ox FI users, or FE users feel whenever they engage with emotions. So ISTPs, I understand that logic means so much to you, but you have to acknowledge people's feelings. You don't have to feel what they feel. You just have to acknowledge that it's a thing for them. And if they say that's what's driving them, that's what's driving them. There's no amount of logic that will ever convince them otherwise. And the last thing I want to talk about, because you guys have NI in your third slot instead of your first two slot, I don't understand how INTJs have this stereotype of being conspiracy theorists. You guys are a lot more conspiracy theorists than we are. As an INTJ who lives and breathes introverted intuition, it has to make sense on multiple levels for us to believe something. Yes, we can say something, but we're not going to believe it. But I've noticed that a type having NI in your third or fourth slot, you guys believe things that are kind of a stretch. I'm not saying every single ISTPs are conspiracy theorists. What I am saying is that you guys are more prone to it than INTJs are. So INTJs love and admire ISTPs. You guys teach us so much when it comes down to life. You guys are so easy to be around, and honestly, you guys are one of the most intelligent people, regardless of whether other types know it or not. I can honestly say that without the ISTPs in my life, there's no way that I would be so comfortable in doing a lot of things that I do in my life. You guys are so influential to us, so just thank you for being you guys. I'm not going to end this very emotionally, but what I'm going to say is that you guys are awesome people, man. Just keep being you guys. And that's all for this video, folks. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this video if you enjoyed it. I put out a lot of content out there, so please support the channel if you liked it. This is a long video to make, guys. I'm very out of practice, but I'm glad I made it because, again, ISTPs have been very influential to me. Thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bye.